Are you sure it's okay to be here?
Hee-jung looked around and asked, cautiously, it's okay. It's our own time. Hee-jung, leaning against a large rock, reached out a hand toward me. Drawn by that touch, I stepped closer to her.
Young-woo, I've never felt this way before, especially here in such a scenic outdoor place.
In nature's embrace, we held each other close. It was a perfect moment, with only the sounds of the stream and the wind. I love you, Hee-jung.
I love you too, Jungwoo.
We shared a kiss on the rock. The love we shared, watched over by Mount Jiri, was more beautiful than anything else. Wow. The electric thrill I felt at the accidental touch of our fingertips 40 years later. It felt as if time were flowing backward. The desperation captured in her trembling voice. The warmth left on my fingertips simply wouldn't fade away. A fated encounter that returned at the age of 64. And the truth faced at a crossroads of an irreversible choice. The story I am sharing with you today is about the flutter of a first love that feels like time has stood still, and the sorrowful tale hidden behind it. Hello. This is Wisdom Stories. I've come to bring you a meaningful story again today. If you find this video helpful, please press the subscribe and like buttons and set your notifications so you can be the first to see new stories. And please share your precious thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your support is a great strength in creating better content. A quiet rural village in Hainam, Jeonnam. My daily routine always started the same way, with the sound of a rooster crowing without fail at dawn. Bae Jungwoo, who turned 64 this year. That is me. I'm just an ordinary man living alone, working as a carpenter. 7 years have passed since I lost my wife. My children have all left for Seoul, and I am the only one left in this quiet village. I've been getting by day after day, waking up at 6 a.m., having a simple meal, and doing carpentry work around the neighborhood. But lately my body hasn't felt like it used to. My knees ache and my back hurts often. I get out of breath while hammering, and I've been going to bed early because I'm so tired by the evening. That day was just like any other evening. I was having some soybean paste stew at my humble table for one, when my phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw it was my old friend Kim Chul-wong. Young-woo, what are you doing? I was just eating dinner. Is something wrong? Chul-wong was my college classmate and a friend from my hometown. After working in Seoul for a long time, he returned to our hometown a few years ago and has been running a small restaurant. I was just calling to see how you were doing. How have you been lately? Health is fine. I'm just getting by. At my age, I'm feeling more aches and pains here and there. I know what you mean. We've passed our 60th birthday after all. But tell me, Jung-ho, have you been exercising? Lately? What is there to call exercise? Just using my body while working is all. Oh, you shouldn't do that. At our age, we need to take care of our health. I'm in a hiking club. Why don't you join me? I hesitated for a moment at the mention of a hiking club. Actually, when I was young, I really loved the mountains. I even participated in a college hiking club back then. But after my wife passed away, I hadn't even climbed a small local hill, let alone a mountain. Come join us. A lot of people come. Most are people our age, and the atmosphere is great. Instead of staying cooped up at home alone, why not come out, meet people, and get some exercise? Cheo Ryung's words touched my heart. Lately, the time I spend alone has felt so long. After work, all I did was watch TV, and weekends were even more desolate. When are you going? Next Saturday at dawn, we're going to the Nagoden course on Jirisan. How about it? Just come out once. I don't know. When have I ever gone hiking? Oh, what are you worried about? We're all about the same age, so we'll go slowly, without overdoing it. And you were in a hiking club, so your body will remember. Cheo Ryung's persistent persuasion began to move my heart bit by bit. Actually, my stamina has been dropping. And being alone, I've often had gloomy thoughts. I felt that meeting new people and breathing fresh air in the mountains might lift my spirits. Then shall I give it a try? Yes, that's the spirit. Do you have hiking clothes and boots? They're old, but they're in the storage room. Great.
Then let's meet at the entrance of Jirisan at 6 a.m. on Saturday.
After hanging up the phone, I felt a flutter in my heart, for the first time in a while. It was a feeling I hadn't felt in a very long time. That night, I took out my dusty hiking gear from the storage room. As I spread out the hiking clothes, boots, and old backpack that hadn't been used in over 20 years, memories came flooding back. I recalled my college days in the hiking club, Those days when we climbed mountains every weekend, set up tents with friends, and talked all night. I was truly happy back then. I tried on the hiking clothes and they fit better than I thought, though my body has definitely gotten a bit heavier than before. Looking in the mirror, I saw a version of myself that felt both unfamiliar and welcoming. A few days later, it was Saturday. I woke up at 5 a.m., had a quick meal, and got ready. I was a little nervous as it had been a while since I went out so early. When I arrived at the entrance of Jirisan Mountain, several people were already gathered. Waved his hand and welcomed me warmly.
Jungwoo, you're here early. This is the friend I told you about, Bae Jungwoo.
I exchanged greetings with the hiking club members and prepared for my first hike with excitement. It was a fresh start that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was when I was greeting the members at the Jirisan Mountain Trail entrance. I saw a woman walking towards us from a distance. At first, I just thought she was a member who arrived late. But there was something familiar about her gait. As she got closer, my heart began to race. I hoped it wasn't true, but I had a strange feeling.
Oh my Jungwoo.
The moment I heard that voice, a shiver went through my whole body. It was a voice I could never forget, even after 40 years. When I slowly looked up to confirm, the face was truly Yeon Hee-young. Hee-jong, is it really you? She, my first love from college, was standing right in front of me. Time had passed, but she was still beautiful. But something was different. She didn't have that bright and cheerful look from before.
Jungwoo, how are you here?
Hee-jong seemed just as surprised as I was. We looked at each other and were speechless for a moment. It felt as if the 40 years had vanished in an instant. A friend suggested I join this hiking club.
It's the same for me. My health hasn't been great lately, so.
An awkward silence followed. There was so much I wanted to say, but I didn't know where to start. Just then I saw a man running over, panting. He was a middle-aged man, and I was shocked when he got close.
Honey, you were here first,
It was Park Seong-tae, my college classmate and once best friend. My mind went blank when I heard him call Hee-jong honey. Seong-tae. You're here too.
Oh, Jungwoo. What a surprise.
Seong-tae was glad to see me, but I had such mixed feelings. That Hee-jong was Seong-tae's wife. How could something like this happen?
So you two know each other. It's a small world.
Seong-tae laughed brightly as if he knew nothing. But between me and Hee-jong, an indescribable subtle tension was flowing. At the signal of the club president, the hike finally began. Seong-tae walked ahead, chatting with other members, and Hee-jong and I naturally walked together behind. At first, we didn't say a word. After reuniting for the first time in 40 years, I didn't know what to say. Moreover, the fact that she was my old friend's wife made the situation even more complicated.
Jungwoo, how have you been all this time?
Hee-jong spoke first. Your voice has become much calmer than it used to be. I just lived my life. I got married, but I lost my wife 7 years ago, so.
I see. I'm sorry.
It's all right. When did you marry Seong-tae?
Not long after I graduated from college. That was over 35 years ago already.
35 years. That's a really long time. We've been living such different lives all those years, As we walked the mountain trail, I kept glancing at Hee-jong. She was clearly smiling, but it didn't seem like a real smile. But I could sense some deep sorrow or exhaustion. Hee-jong, I started to speak, but then I stopped. I wanted to ask something, but I wasn't sure if I had the right to.
What is it?
Nothing. It's nothing. But I felt it intuitively. That Hee-jung was going through something difficult. In her expression, her voice, and her overall demeanor, I couldn't find that bright and vibrant person from before. As the mountain path grew steeper, our conversation naturally trailed off. But in my heart, I remained curious. What could have happened to Hee-jung? Why does she look so exhausted? Seung-tae, who was ahead, looked back and shouted,
Hey, what are you two doing? Come on, hurry up.
There was a strange sense of discomfort in his voice. It sounded like he was pressuring us. Meeting my first love after 40 years, and the shocking fact that she was my old friend's wife, this whole situation felt like a dream. As the trail became steeper, Seung-tae moved ahead with the other hiking club members. Because of that, Hee-jung and I were naturally left alone. As I looked at her closely while walking, I could feel that she had certainly changed. There were deep wrinkles on her face, and a shadow hard to describe hung around her eyes. I could see her trying to smile, but the pain hidden behind that smile was evident. Hee-jung, are you okay? You look like you're having a hard time. When I asked cautiously, Hee-jung stopped walking for a moment. She bowed her head, stayed silent for a long while, and then answered in a small voice.
It's hard. It's really very hard.
I could feel how much pain was contained in those few words. That my first love, whom I met after 40 years, would be this exhausted. After looking around and confirming that Seung-tae was far enough away, Hee-jung cautiously opened her mouth. Her voice was trembling. She seemed to be hesitating about what to say.
Seung-tae has changed a lot.
Hee-jung said that Seung-tae had been drinking too much for a few years. She said he came home drunk every single night. That wasn't all. He even started gambling. It began with small amounts, but now he's even mortgaged the house, she said. I raised my voice without even realizing it. The house is mortgaged. How serious has this situation become?
Shh, be quiet.
Hee-jung looked around with a terrified expression, fearing Seung-tae might hear us. Seeing her like that made my heart ache even more. We sat down for a moment to rest next to a large rock. With other hikers passing by, it was a suitable place to talk. Hee-jung let out a deep sigh and continued her story. She said Seung-tae started relying on alcohol when his business failed. At first he said it was to relieve stress, but the amount kept increasing. Until now he can't go a single day without it. The gambling was even worse. It started with light card games with friends, but now, she says he's even into online gambling. Sitting in front of the computer all night long. As she spoke, tears welled up in Hee-jung's eyes as she said the worst part was the verbal abuse. Whenever he drinks, he takes his anger out on her, she said. He blames everything on Hee-jung, saying that his current state and the business failure are all her fault. She said there are times when she is truly terrified. She mentioned that his eyes completely change. She rolled up her sleeve slightly, and I saw a faint bruise on her arm. My mind went blank for a moment. She said they had a bit of an argument yesterday too. When she said she was going to a club meeting, he asked why she was going when they had no money. My fists clenched on their own. How could someone do this to their own wife?
Why are you putting up with this? Don't you think you should consider a divorce?
Hee-jung asked what she could do at her age, saying she has nowhere to go and can't burden her children. Her voice was deeply ingrained with resignation. It was so heartbreaking to see her feeling helpless as her 35-year marriage crumbled before her eyes. She said he used to be a decent person, but now he feels like a completely different man. She said he changes entirely once he drinks. She said every night is terrifying. She never knows when he might get angry or raise his hand again. The moment I heard that, it felt like my heart was tearing apart. To think that the person I loved, that bright and beautiful Hee-jung, is living in such agony.
Sometimes I really want to just disappear.
At Hee-jung's desperate confession, I jumped to my feet.
Don't say things like that.
Hee-jung looked up at me with wide, startled eyes. I apologized for startling her, but told her she must never think that way. Just then we heard Seung-tae's voice in the distance. He was calling out for Hee-jung. Hee-jung's face stiffened in an instant. She had an expression of worry as if she feared something terrible might happen. Hee-jung quickly wiped away her tears and stood up. It was heartbreaking to see her struggling to put on a forced, bright expression. She begged me not to tell Seong-tae about what we had just discussed. Is this really how a couple who has lived together for 35 years behaves? I felt a surge of anger rising deep within my heart. Hearing Seong-tae approaching, Hee-jung hurriedly rose from her seat. But at that moment, a question popped into my mind. The memory of that day 40 years ago came back to me vividly.
Hee-jung, wait a moment. Can I ask you something?
Hee-jung looked at me with a slightly surprised expression.
Do you remember the day we were supposed to meet for the last time 40 years ago?
At those words, Hee-jung's face stiffened. She clearly had an expression that showed she remembered.
Of course I remember. You didn't show up that day,
My heart sank in an instant. I didn't show up?
What are you talking about? I went to the cafe that day. I waited for over 2 hours, but you didn't come.
Hee-jung's eyes widened. It seemed like she sensed that something had gone wrong.
That's impossible. Seong-tae said it so clearly.
At that moment, all the puzzle pieces began to fit together. The outline of what Seong-tae had said started to emerge. Hee-jung said she had arrived at the cafe 30 minutes early and waited for over an hour. She said that when I didn't appear, she eventually gave up and went home. Then, the very next day, Seong-tae came to her and said my heart had changed, and that I had another woman. I told her that I had a similar experience. I told her that I definitely went to the meeting spot that day and waited for hours because she didn't show up. And a few days later, I heard from Seong-tae that Hee-jung had decided to see another man.
Then that means for 40 years.
Hee-jung's voice trembled. We were both thinking the same thing. The terrible truth that we had misunderstood each other for 40 years.
Seong-tae lied to us. My voice trembled as well. I felt a surge of rage, knowing that a friend I trusted had been deceiving us since 40 years ago. Hee-jung said that now, everything had finally become clear. She said she understood why Seong-tae appeared so quickly that day and why he spoke with such certainty. She said it seemed like he had intentionally tried to tear us apart. My mind became a mess of complicated thoughts. But what was more shocking was the reason Seong-tae told those lies in the eyes. Hee-jung said she thinks Seong-tae had liked her for a long time. He said he had been interested in Hee-jung since college, but gave up because she was dating me. But he seized the opportunity while I was away in the military. I still couldn't believe it. Tears welled up in Hee-jung's eyes, realizing that a friend she hiked with and served in the military with had done such a thing. She must have felt like 40 years of her life had crumbled in an instant. She realized that her entire life had begun with a friend's lie. I felt the same way. For 40 years I lived thinking Hee-jung had left me, but in reality, we had both been deceived. I don't know how many nights I suffered because of that. Honey, what are you doing? There. Seong-tae's voice was heard nearby. Hee-jung quickly wiped her tears and stood up. At that moment, my gaze towards Seong-tae changed completely. The man I once thought of as a friend now looked like a traitor who had ruined our lives. And he was the perpetrator who was still tormenting Hee-jung even now. Seong-tae approached us, looking at us with suspicious eyes. I worried if he had noticed something, but fortunately, he didn't say anything particular. But I had already made up my mind that I could no longer stand by and do nothing. Now that I knew the truth from 40 years ago, and now that I had seen the pain Hee-jung was still enduring, I knew I had to take action. My mind was a mess the entire time we were coming down the mountain. Anger, sadness, and regret were all mixed together. If only I had looked for the truth more actively back then. If only I hadn't just believed Seong-tae's words. But it was already in the past. What mattered was the present. I was desperate to help Hee-jung so she wouldn't suffer any longer. On the way down, Seong-tae kept walking ahead, mingling with the other club members. Hee-jung and I followed behind without saying much. We were both preoccupied because of the shocking truth we had just heard. When we arrived at the parking lot at the foot of the mountain, Hee-jung suddenly stumbled. She was tired from the hike, but I had noticed her, touching her arm repeatedly since earlier.
Hee-jung, does your arm hurt?
When I asked with concern, Hee-jung said she was fine, but her face looked pale. Sung-tae was busy saying goodbye to the other members. Taking that chance, I led Hee-jung to a quiet spot.
Let me see your arm. It looks like you're hurt.
Hee-jung hesitated before rolling up her sleeve a little. But what I saw at that moment was shocking. It was in a much worse state than the bruises I had seen before the hike. Her elbow was bruised like this, and there were even red marks near her wrist. It was clearly a mark from being grabbed or twisted violently.
What is this? When did this happen?
Jung-tae was angry last night and grabbed me a bit too hard.
Hee-jung's voice was trembling. Last night meant this happened the night before we came on the trip. I went to the car and brought the first aid kit.
I need to apply this and wrap it with a bandage.
As I applied the antiseptic, seeing Hee-jung in pain broke my heart. How could one person do this to another?
Thank you, Jung-woo. It's been a while since someone took care of me.
Hee-jung's words made my heart ache even more. It was sad that I was doing what her husband should have been doing. While wrapping the bandage, I looked closer, and it was even more serious. Finger marks were clearly visible on her upper arm as well. How hard must he have grabbed her to leave bruises like this?
Hee-jung, this is too much. Don't you need to go to the hospital?
It's okay. I'm used to it.
Her saying she was used to it made my fist clench automatically. It meant that things like this weren't happening just once or twice. Just then, Sung-tae approached us. Hee-jung quickly pulled down her sleeve and stood up.
What are you doing? Let's go home quickly.
Sung-tae's voice sounded cold. The look in his eyes as he stared at Hee-jung was different from before.
No, Hee-jung hurt her arm, so I was giving her first aid.
I answered for her, but Sung-tae didn't seem to care much.
Just put some medicine on it at home. Don't bother others with it.
The moment I heard that, my anger flared up. His wife was hurt, and instead of saying thank you, he complained about her being a bother. Hee-jung followed him without a word. She gave me a small bow as she turned away, but her expression was too sorrowful. On the way home, I kept thinking about it. Hee-jung's bruises and Sung-tae's indifferent attitude. I couldn't believe this was all real. Learning the truth from 40 years ago was a shock, but what Hee-jung is going through right now was even more serious. It had gone far beyond the level of a simple domestic spat. I couldn't sleep that night. Hee-jung's bruised arm kept circling in my mind. And the things she had said came back to me. Things like how every night was terrifying, and how she sometimes wanted to just disappear. I felt a strong urge to do something. I couldn't just stand by anymore. But I was at a loss as to how to help her specifically. Because Hee-jung had said that divorce was hard at her age, and that she had nowhere else to go. But I couldn't just step in and confront Sung-tae myself, and the next morning, I was still only thinking about Hee-jung. I couldn't even focus while I was working. I was worried that something might have happened to her again. Several days passed, but there was no word from Hee-jung. I regretted not asking for her contact information. I was worried that Sung-tae might have treated her even worse. But then I realized that I could probably ask the hiking club president for her number. However, I was cautious, fearing that I might be suspected for no reason. A week passed, and there was still no news of Hee-jung. Even though I tried to just forget about it, it kept bothering me. I was especially worried when night fell. I kept remembering her saying that every night was terrifying for her. Then one night, my phone suddenly rang. It was past 11 p.m. that night when my phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number, but I had a gut feeling it was Hee-jung. Hello?
Jung-woo. It's me, Hee-jung.
A trembling voice came through the phone. It sounded like an urgent situation.
Hee-jung, how did you get my number?
I asked the hiking club president. Jungwoo. Can you come right now?
I could feel the desperation in her voice. It seemed like something serious had happened. What's going on? Where are you?
I'm at a convenience store near my house. Seongtae is drunk and going crazy.
The moment I heard that, my heart sank. It felt like what I had been worrying about for days had finally happened. Hee-jung gave me her address and told me to come quickly. Her voice was trembling so much that I feared something terrible might happen. I hurriedly got dressed, took my car, and drove out. It took about 30 minutes by car to get to the convenience store where Hee-jung was. I was anxious the entire time I was driving. When I arrived at the store, Hee-jung was sitting in a corner seat. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking constantly.
Hee-jung.
When I called out to her, Hee-jung lifted her head. The tear tracks on her face were clear, and her clothes were slightly torn.
Jungwoo, thank you.
Hee-jung stumbled as she stood up. I quickly reached out to support her. What happened? What did Seongtae do? Hee-jung explained the situation in a trembling voice. She said Seongtae had started drinking this evening and was completely wasted. Then she said he took his anger out on her, claiming he'd lost money, gambling again. She said it was much worse than usual. He threw things around the house, shoved her, and even threatened her with a weapon. She said she was so terrified that she snuck out of the house. Threatened with a weapon? When I asked Seongtae, Hee-jung nodded. She said that Seongtae loses his senses when he's drunk, and she had to run away because today felt really dangerous. Hee-jung, you have to report this to the police.
No. He'll be even angrier if I do.
Hee-jung tried to stop me, but I had already made up my mind. I couldn't just stand by anymore. No, this is already a crime. If we just sit still, something much worse could happen. I dialed 112. I explained the situation and gave them Hee-jung's address. They said the police would be dispatched soon. Hee-jung was worried at first, but she seemed a bit relieved when I said I would stay with her. After the police arrived, we went to Hee-jung's house together. The house was an absolute mess. Broken dishes and overturned furniture everywhere. Seongtae was passed out on the living room floor. The police woke him up, but he was still too drunk to have a proper conversation. He just kept blabbering nonsense. Eventually, Seongtae was taken to the police station. The police told Hee-jung to go to the hospital and get a medical certificate. They said it might be needed as evidence later. It would be hard to go to the hospital alone. I'll go with you. Hee-jung nodded, feeling grateful. I waited by her side while she was being treated in the emergency room. The doctor looked serious after seeing the bruises on Hee-jung's body. The medical report stated that she had multiple contusions. After leaving the hospital, Hee-jung said she couldn't go home tonight. She said Seongtae would be even more furious if he were released from the station. I'll get a room for you. Rest there for the night. I booked a room at a nearby motel and walked her there. In front of the door, Hee-jung held me back.
Jungwoo, thank you so much. I don't know what would have happened today if you weren't there.
It's okay. Don't hesitate to call me anytime in the future. Don't suffer alone. Tears welled up in Hee-jung's eyes. Perhaps it was a sense of warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, I heard from Hee-jung early. She said Seongtae had been shouting in front of her house all night. She said the neighbors had called 112 again. I went to see Hee-jung again. Then we went to the police station together to file a formal report for domestic violence. The officer told Hee-jung she could receive temporary protection measures, and they advised her to proceed with the divorce process. You need to make a decision now. Hee-jung, you can't go on living like this anymore. After thinking for a long time, Hee-jung nodded. It seemed like she finally decided to gather the courage. From that day on, I became a reliable pillar of support for Hee-jung. I went to the lawyer's office with her and helped her fill out the divorce papers. It was so heartbreaking that my first love, whom I reunited with after 40 years, was living in such pain. Seongtae received a restraining order against Hee-jung. It was for charges including domestic violence and trespassing. Only then could Hee-jung feel a little at ease. After Seongtae was detained, Hee-jung began the formal divorce process. Ending a 35-year marriage wasn't easy, but she showed a firm resolve this time. In her consultation with the lawyer, Hee-jung cited domestic violence and gambling addiction as grounds for divorce. Medical certificates and police records served as crucial evidence, say. Seong-tae's side didn't raise any major objections either. Being in custody, he probably couldn't do much. The property division process was complicated, just as expected. Because of Seong-tae's gambling debts, even the house had been used as collateral. However, the lawyer handled it well, allowing Hee-jung to secure at least a minimum share of the assets. I watched over the entire process by her side. I went to court with her, helped with paperwork, and sometimes just sat by her side to listen to her. Hee-jung struggled a lot at first. It wouldn't have been easy to part with someone she had spent 35 long years with. Even though it had been a painful time.
Jung-woo, did I make the right decision?
Sometimes Hee-jung would say things like this. Becoming alone at this age must have felt daunting for her as well. Of course you did the right thing. You couldn't have kept living like that. I always encouraged Hee-jung. And I told her she wasn't alone, that I was there for her. A few months later, the divorce was finally finalized. As she stepped out of the courthouse, her face showed a mix of relief and complex emotions.
Am I really free now?
Hee-jung asked me. It was as if she wanted to confirm if it was a dream or reality. Yes, you're truly free now. No one can hurt you anymore. That evening, I had tea and talked with Hee-jung at a quiet cafe. It was the first day the divorce was finalized.
Jung-woo, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I would still be living in that hellish life.
Tears welled up in Hee-jung's eyes. But this time they weren't tears of sadness but tears of gratitude.
Because of you, I can breathe again.
Hearing those words touched my heart deeply. I couldn't protect her 40 years ago, but I was relieved that I could be of help to her now. I'm grateful too. Because of you, my life has meaning again. It really was true. While helping Hee-jung, I had changed a lot as well. I was happy to escape my dull, solitary routine and finally be able to do something for someone else. After the divorce proceedings, Hee-jung moved into a small studio apartment. The house she lived in with Seong-tae had been put up for auction. It was a much smaller space, but Hee-jung was satisfied.
Even if it's small, it's my own space. It's a place where no one can bother me.
As I helped her settle into her new home, I could see a change in her. Her expression had brightened, and she laughed more often. Most of all, I loved seeing that she was no longer trembling in fear. Around that time, I also decided to move from Nam-i to Gwangju. I wanted to live somewhere close to Hee-jung. It was a fresh start at the age of 64, but I wasn't afraid at all. While continuing my work as a carpenter in the new city, I started meeting Hee-jung often. We would go grocery shopping together, sometimes see movies or take walks in a nearby park. At first, we just spent time together like friends. I thought Hee-jung needed time to heal the wounds from her divorce. I didn't feel impatient either. I had waited 40 years, so what was a little more waiting? As months passed, Hee-jung gradually regained her former bright self. Sometimes when I heard her laugh, it reminded me of the Hee-jung from our college days.
Jung-woo, I'm really happy these days.
One day, Hee-jung said this to me. It was the first time in a long while that I had heard her say she was happy. I'm happy too. Seeing you smile makes me even happier. From then on, a subtle change began between us. Something more special than just a simple friendship started to flow. But we were both cautious, because we had 40 years of history and our own individual scars. Still, as we spent more time together, we naturally grew closer. One day, as autumn deepened, Hee-jung made a suggestion.
Jung-woo, shall we go to the Yeongsang riverbank tomorrow? I heard the autumn foliage is beautiful there.
And so we decided to take a trip to the Yeongsang riverbank the next day. It was our first outing together, just the two of us in 40 years. On a Saturday afternoon in mid-November, I headed to the Yeongsang riverbank with Hee-jung. The sky was clear, and a cool breeze was blowing. It was perfect weather for an outing. When we arrived at the riverbank, it was truly beautiful. The maple trees were dyed in red and yellow, and the river was sparkling under the sunlight. Perhaps because it was a weekday, there weren't many people, so it was quiet.
Wow, it's so pretty.
Hee-jung said, filled with admiration. It was the first time in a long time that I had seen such a truly bright look on her face. You're right, I'd only seen it in photos, but it's even more impressive in person. We walked slowly along the riverbank path. The fallen leaves crunched under our feet, and the chirping of birds could be heard from afar. Second, as we walked, we naturally shared stories about this and that. It was a comfortable conversation about how life has been, the new house, and what we want to do in the future.
Young-woo, thank you so much for letting me spend such a peaceful time like this.
Hee-jung stopped walking and looked at me. Her eyes were filled with sincere gratitude. Why are you thanking me? I'm enjoying it too. It was truly the truth. I was happy just being here with Hee-jung. We sat on an old bench by the river and enjoyed the view. The crimson autumn leaves reflecting on the river looked just like a painting. The way the tree branches swayed in the wind was also beautiful. Beautiful.
Jung-woo, we came to a pretty place like this 40 years ago, too.
Hee-jung suddenly brought up the past. It was autumn back then, too.
That's right. That was the day you held my hand for the first time.
My heart started racing at those words. Memories from that day 40 years ago came back vividly. We got up from the bench and started walking, growing closer as we did. We walked so close that our shoulders occasionally brushed against each other. But we couldn't bring ourselves to hold hands. For some reason, I felt shy. There was a small pavilion halfway down the riverside path. We decided to take a short break there. The view of the river from the pavilion was truly fantastic.
It's even better sitting here.
Hee-jung said as she leaned against the pavilion railing. Her hair fluttering in the wind looked beautiful. Looks. I stood next to Hee-jung and looked out at the scenery as well. But I kept getting distracted by Hee-jung. I found myself stealing glances at her profile.
Jung-woo.
Hee-jung suddenly called my name.
Thank you. Truly.
Then Hee-jung turned her body toward me. Our eyes met. At that moment, it felt as if time had stopped. Hee-jung's face was exactly the same as it was 40 years ago. That look, both excited and bashful. My hand moved without me even realizing it, reaching out toward Hee-jung's hand. Hee-jung seemed to have noticed the movement as well. Our hands slowly drew closer together, as if pulled by a magnet. The moment our fingertips touched, it felt like an electric current. And finally, we held hands. It had been 40 years since we last held hands, but the feeling was the same. It was warm and cozy.
It's strange. Even after 40 years, it feels exactly the same.
Hee-jung said in a small voice. I feel the same way. It's like time has stopped. We stood there for a long while holding hands. We didn't say a word, but we could feel each other's hearts. We felt as shy as we did in our 20s. Even at 64, I felt like a young, bashful man in front of my first love. As the sun began to set, the sky turned a deep shade of red. The sunset blending with the autumn leaves was truly beautiful. It felt as if it were blessing us.
It's pretty.
Hee-jung said, gazing at the sunset. Yes, it's really pretty. I answered, looking at Hee-jung instead of the sunset. When Hee-jung felt my gaze and turned, our eyes met once again. In that moment, everything was perfect. The beautiful riverside, the view, the warmth of her hand, and my first love reunited after 40 years. I couldn't ask for more. We kept holding hands on the way back, home from the river. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. It felt natural and right. That night, alone at home, I couldn't stop smiling. I felt like the warmth of Hee-jung's hand still lingered on mine. It was a happiness I hadn't felt in a very long time. For days after returning from the river, I remained immersed in that day's emotions. The moment I held Hee-jung's hand kept circling in my mind. But I wasn't sure what to do next. Starting a relationship at the age of 64 wasn't easy, wasn't it? I didn't want to rush and make Hee-jung feel burdened. Few days later, Hee-jung reached out to me first. She suggested that we have dinner together. Though I was excited, I replied calmly on the outside. That evening, we met at a quiet restaurant. Hee-jung's face looked a little more flushed than usual. It seemed like she had something she wanted to say. After finishing our meal, we took a walk in a nearby park. As we walked side by side under the streetlights, the conversation flowed naturally.
Jungwoo, a few days ago by the river.
Hee-jung started to speak, then stopped. It seemed like she was struggling with what to say. Yeah. I've been thinking about it too. When I spoke first, Hee-jung wore a look of relief. We sat on a park bench and had an honest conversation. We both knew how we felt about each other, but it hadn't been easy to express it. Hee-jung, actually, I hesitated to begin as well. But this time I decided to summon my courage. It's been a long time since I've had someone I wanted to protect. My heart raced the moment I said those words. It was a moment of cautiously opening up my heart. Looking into Hee-jung's eyes, I could see emotions welling up. It was a complex mix of surprise, joy, and even a little bit of fear.
Jungwoo.
Hee-jung's voice trembled. It seemed she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out easily. After a long silence, Hee-jung slowly opened her mouth. She said that she had been thinking about me too. But she explained that because her 35-year marriage had ended so recently, she wasn't sure. I told her that I understood how she felt. I said there was no rush, and we could take it slow, at our own pace.
I didn't know I would feel this way at my age.
Hee-jung said with a shy smile. That smile was so beautiful. I feel the same way. I never thought I'd feel this kind of excitement at 64. From that day on, we began to see each other officially. At first cautiously, and then more and more naturally. We spent every weekend together. We watched movies, went to exhibitions, and hunted for delicious restaurants. Just like lovers in their 20s. As I spent more time with Hee-jung, I became certain. The desire to spend the rest of my life with her grew stronger. About a month later, Hee-jung confessed to me first. She told me she loved me, and was now certain about us. I was so happy in that moment. The love that started again after 40 years was different from our youth. It was deeper and more precious. We knew each other's pains, and how precious our remaining time was. 2 months later, I made a proposal to Hee-jung. I asked her to live with me. I said we would be much happier together than living alone. Hee-jung thought about it for a moment and said yes. But she said there was one condition. She wanted to live in a quieter place than Gwangju. Where would be a good place? When I asked, Hee-jung suggested near Manjiri. She wanted a fresh start near the place where we first met. I loved that idea. Imagining living peacefully with Hee-jung in a quiet village at the foot of Manjiri warmed my heart. We looked around several villages to find a house. We found a house we liked in a small village in Hadonggan. It was a single-story house with a front yard, backed by Manjiri and a small stream flowing in front. How about here? When I asked, Hee-jung's eyes sparkled. She said she loved it and really wanted to live here. We signed the contract and began preparing for the move. We organized our respective belongings and chose furniture for the new house together. The whole process was enjoyable. At the end of November, we finally moved into our new home. On the first night, we sat in the living room, drank tea together, and looked out the window. The silhouette of Manjiri was visible in the moonlight.
Did we really make it here?
Hee-jung said as if she couldn't believe it. Yes, we did it. After 40 long years, we finally found our way back to each other. It was truly a brand new beginning. It was our first night in our new home in Hadong. We were busy all day unpacking, but because I was with Hee-jung, it wasn't tiring at all. Actually, the process of setting up our new nest was quite enjoyable. After a simple dinner, we sat in the living room, sipping tea and gazing at the scenery outside. The ridges of Jeresan Mountain stood grandly in the dark, and a gentle sound of water drifted from the small stream.
Is this really our home?
Hee-jung said with a look that still seemed to find it hard to believe. Yes, it is truly our home now. For us having reunited and started our love after 40 years, everything felt new. I never expected to feel such excitement at the age of 64.
Jungwoo, thank you. It feels just like a dream.
Hee-jung said as she held my hand. The warmth of her hand was exactly the same as it was 40 years ago. As the night deepened, the atmosphere between us began to change. Simply holding hands was no longer enough. Our feelings for each other had grown much deeper. Hee-jung's eyes looked different than before. They were deeper and more earnest. I felt the same way. It was as if the emotions suppressed for 40 years were all bursting out at once. Sitting side by side on the small sofa in the living room, Hee-jung leaned her head on my shoulder. At that moment, a thrill ran through my entire body. It felt exactly the same as it did 40 years ago.
Jungwoo.
Hee-jung called my name in a soft voice. Her voice was filled with longing and excitement. Yes. As I replied, Hee-jung lifted her head and looked at me. I could read everything in her eyes. That we couldn't hold back any longer. That she felt exactly the same way I did. I could no longer hesitate either. Carefully, I brought my hand to Hee-jung's cheek. Her skin was still soft. Is this okay? When I asked, Hee-jung gave a small nod. And then she gently closed her eyes. At that moment, 40 years of time simply vanished. It felt as though we were lovers in our 20s again. Slowly and tenderly, I kissed Hee-jung on her lips. It was a kiss I hadn't felt in a long time, but it wasn't awkward at all. Instead, it was even sweeter and deeper. Unlike the clumsy kisses of our youth, we now knew exactly how much we loved each other.
Jungwoo, let's go to the bedroom now.
Hee-jung said, shy yet courageous. My heart began to pound heavily. My steps toward the bedroom were trembling. Even at the age of 64, I felt like a young man full of excitement in front of my first love. Everything was perfect when I held Hee-jung in my arms again in the bedroom. Feeling each other's warmth and hearing our heartbeats, I savored the moment I had missed for 40 years. I love you, Hee-jung.
I love you too, Jungwoo.
And so, after 40 years, we became one again. We shared a deeper, more genuine love than the passion of our youth. We soothed each other's wounds and confirmed our promise to spend the rest of our lives together. That night, we were beyond happy, words cannot express it. I felt with my whole being that the 40-year wait was not in vain. Being held in Hee-jung's arms, I felt like I had the whole world. The next morning, the sunlight streaming through the window woke us up. My heart swelled as I watched Hee-jung open her eyes in my arms. Did you sleep well?
Yes. It's been such a long time since I've slept so comfortably.
Those words warmed my heart. I could feel that Hee-jung truly felt at peace. While preparing breakfast together, we talked about our future plans. We decided to make a small vegetable garden, get to know the villagers, and occasionally climb Mount Jiri.
Should we go back to Nogodan where we first met?
I agreed to Hee-jung's suggestion. I knew this time I could climb it, thinking of a happy future instead of a difficult past. A few days later, the village head stopped by to greet us. He welcomed us to the village and asked us to participate in local events. When I introduced Hee-jung and myself as a married couple, he congratulated us.
Even young people nowadays aren't as affectionate as you. It's wonderful to see.
At the village head's words, Hee-jung and I looked at each other and smiled. Though our love was rekindled after 40 years, to others we must have just looked like a loving couple. We took advantage of the last warm days before winter to tidy up around the house. We built a flower bed in the front yard and prepared a small garden in the back. Doing everything with Hee-jung was pure joy.
Let's grow flowers and vegetables next spring.
Love that. It will be delicious to cook with the vegetables we grew ourselves. These simple conversations made me happy. It was an ordinary life, but it felt special because we were together. One evening, Hee-jung suddenly burst into tears. I was startled and asked her what was wrong.
I'm just so happy. I never thought a day like this would actually come.
Seeing those tears, I became emotional too. We both realized how difficult the times we endured were and how precious our time together is now. On the day of the first snowfall, we stood in the yard letting the snow fall on us. It was beautiful to see the white snow covering Jerson Mountain and our house.
Jungwoo, we really did the right thing, didn't we?
Of course we did. We couldn't have done any better. And so, we began a new life in the love we rediscovered after 40 years. Although it was late, I found true happiness and met the person to spend the rest of my life with. Even now, when I wake up every morning, it feels like a dream that Hee-jung is by my side. I intend to cherish this happiness that I found after a long wait of 40 years. I realize that there is no age limit to love. That even at 64 one can feel excitement and make a new beginning. It was worth the wait, not giving up. Everyone, today's story concludes here. How did you like the story of a first love reunited after 40 years? It was a heartwarming story that allowed me to feel once again that true love does not change over time. If you have had similar experiences or have any thoughts on this story, please share them in the comments. Your valuable stories and support are a great strength in creating better content. If you found the video helpful, please press the subscribe and like buttons. And if you set up notifications, you can be the first to see our new stories. I will return next time with another meaningful story to warm your hearts. Thank you for watching today as well. Have a happy day.